This is Lab 18, Example 6. We have the quadratic equation, negative 6x squared plus 10x minus 23 is equal to 0. We want to use the discriminant to determine the type of solutions that will come from this, and then we want to determine what those solutions are and write them in simplest form. So our discriminant is d is equal to b squared minus 4ac. It's derived from our quadratic formula. It's the inside of our square root. If our discriminant is greater than 0, we have 2 real roots. If our discriminant is equal to 0, it's 1 real root. And if our discriminant is less than 0, if it's negative, then we have 2 imaginary roots. So, getting right into it, let's find what our discriminant is. So d is equal to b squared minus 4ac. So b is 10, so we have 10 squared minus 4 times a, which is negative 6, times c, which is negative 23. And if you plug this into a calculator, you get negative 452. Now negative 452 is less than 0. So, because our discriminant is less than 0, we have 2 imaginary roots. In other words, our roots will include I, which is the square root of negative 1. So, we know that there's 2 imaginary roots. So let's figure out what those roots are. And we're going to do that the same way we've done with every other kind of root. We're going to use the quadratic formula. So x is equal to negative b plus minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a. So, substitute it into these letters. We have negative b, which is going to give us negative 10, plus minus square root of 10 squared minus 4 times negative 6 times negative 23. Again, the inside of the square root is just the discriminant that we had up here. Divided by 2a. Our a is negative 6, so this is 2 times negative 6. So we already know what the inside of the square root is. It's the discriminant. So let's substitute in for that. So this is negative 10 plus minus the square root of negative 452 divided by 2 times negative 6, which is negative 12. Now I want to look in depth at this square root, so on another page I'm going to simplify this square root before plugging it back into this entire formula. So we have the square root of negative 452. And we want to kind of simplify this. So if we break down 452 into factors, it's even, so we're going to assume we can divide it by 2. If we can divide it by 2 again, we find out we can divide it by 4. And if we divide it by 4, we're left with 113. 113 doesn't really have any perfect squares. 4 is a perfect square. It's 2 squared. So we can rewrite it as a squared. 113 doesn't really have any perfect squares, so we're just going to keep it as it is. We're going to rewrite this square root as negative 1 times 2 squared times 113, like that. We can split up this square root because everything inside is being multiplied as negative 1 times the square root of 2 squared times the square root of 113. The square root of negative 1 is I, so this is I. Something squared that's in a square root is just going to be itself, so this is just 2. And then we're going to keep the square root of 113 as itself because it can't really simplify anymore. So just rewriting this, this is 2i times the square root of 113. It's the same thing as the square root of negative 452. So going back to our example, we're going to substitute what we just simplified, the square root of negative 452, with our 2i square root of 113. So this is negative 10 plus minus 2i times the square root of 113 divided by negative 12. So now that we have it like this, all that's left to do is to split it up into its plus minus and to its and we're going to split up the numerator into two different fractions as well. At the same time we do that. So using the plus 1 first and splitting up the numerator into two different fractions, this is the same thing as negative 10 divided by negative 12 plus, doing the plus 1 first, 2I square root of 113 divided by negative 12, and doing the minus 1 next, we have negative 10 minus, divided by negative 12, minus 2I square root of 113 divided by negative 12. So negative 10 divided by negative 12, negative over negative is a positive. 10 divided by 12 can be simplified as 5/6. And then 2I times the square root of 113 and negative 12 have the same common factor as 2. So taking out the 2 from the top and the bottom, we get I times the square root of 113 divided by negative 6. Going on to the next one, we already simplified this fraction over here, so we already know that it's 5/6. And here I wrote it in a funky fashion, but this is the same thing as plus minus, so we have a minus over a minus, which is going to give us a positive. So this is plus, and 2 and 12 have the common factor of 2, so taking out the 2, we have I square root of 113 divided by 6. So these are our two imaginary roots.